There's going to be a point where we may be forced to join a conference.
How important is it for you guys to retain your independence?
As long as we can, we will. It's what this football program was built from. And I have a lot of confidence in our administration and Pete Bavacqua, our AD, that he'll always keep us in a position to be successful. So as long as we can keep that independence, we will. But if there ever comes a time that we are at a disadvantage because we're not in a conference, I'm sure he'll make the decision along with our president to say, all right, we're going to join one of these conferences.
What is the biggest threat that you would see to that? You know, like where would a disadvantage pop up?
Well, I think if you talk about being at a disadvantage to make the postseason, right, because you're not in the playoffs, or if it comes a time where teams won't schedule you, right, because the Big Ten or the SEC are saying we're going to play 9 games and we'll play a crossover game, and who cares about Notre Dame? Well, then I think there's going to be a point where we may be forced to join a conference. But until that point happens, which it doesn't look likely, we're going to stay independent as long as we can.
Every single offseason, we are forced into dealing with this conversation about Notre Dame. Are they going to be forced to join a conference? Right? And for basketball, they've done it, and they were in the ACC, and then as a complimentary thing, right, they were playing all these ACC teams for football, and then even like a year in there, they were forced into the ACC championship game and et cetera, et cetera. But Notre Dame somehow, some way, has always gotten their way. And the reason for Notre Dame continuously getting their way is because of the way that college football works. And that is brand name football. And until they switch to a physical and actual playoff system with rules in place instead of voting, that's the way that college football is going to continue to be. Again, I want to reiterate something. If Alabama fan had any cause to be upset a season ago about their football team not being in, it shouldn't have been the argument that 90% of us were making, and that is you lost 3 games. That is the SEC wasn't as tough last year as it has been in the past. That is, it was propaganda by ESPN. That is, look, you lost to OU, who was very mediocre in a bad blowout. We'll give you 1 touchdown off the board even then, right? You lost to Vanderbilt, who lost to Georgia Southern. Just stop, okay? So the rest of us were making that argument. The argument that Alabama fans should have been making is, we're ranked higher than Clemson. That's the argument that should have been made. Not we're Alabama. But see, though, that's the problem. Therein lies the entire issue. Alabama fan, Alabama athlete, Alabama coach gets to say, we're Alabama. It is legitimately 110% all about that brand name. And in as long as it is always about the brand name, then teams like Notre Dame and some others will have their run of the rooster. And to be honest with you, it's probably, to me, it was a calculated move by the committee a season ago to keep the blue bloods blue, right? Sure, Boise State was given their shot, but how often is that legitimately going to happen now, especially with the new rules? So the way that I look at it is Alabama should have been upset with the rules, but they were upset because they were just like, we're Alabama, we get to do whatever we want. And where did that come from? I don't know. Them being taken over an undefeated Florida State football team. And before anybody says anything, I've rehashed this 1,000,001 times, and I'm going to tell you right now. The bottom line to that football game between Florida State and Georgia that year was everybody that could move on to the NFL, which was 10 players, I think, they left and they didn't play in that game. Then they had a bunch of other transfers. Georgia beat up on Florida State's practice squad, who, by the way, still threw a middle finger up. And everybody knew what happened. That's why ESPN, especially Mad Dog, got on there and called them a disgrace to college football. Because they knew. They were like, come on, you guys, you didn't even play the game. That's what they felt like. They felt like they threw the game. Well, Alabama got their way, and by the way, what did they do in the CFP? Which, by the way, I guarantee you, had all those guys got a shot in the CFP, they would have stuck around. But it is what it is. The point of what I'm saying is, because their name is Alabama, and before Alabama fan gets up here, look, we are not discrediting your football team. We are not saying that they are not an accomplished football team. And we're not saying that they haven't done things in the past. But even a year ago, especially in today's college football with the transfer portal, what you're not comprehending is that everything can change in the offseason now. It's literally bigger than NFL free agency. Everything can change. And because an entire roster can basically change, and you're not just being able to stockpile 5-star recruits anymore, we shouldn't be looking at what you did over the last 10, 15, 20 years. What we should be looking at is, okay, but how good were you this season? And a season ago, Alabama was a very average football team. Whether you like it or not, that's reality. Now, here's the other thing that I'm going to say to this, and this is really the button on it, if I'm being honest with you. Not only do I not like big brand football, not only do I completely disagree with an invitational, because that's what it is. It's not a playoff, it's an invitational. If it was a playoff, there would be a system in place. But I adamantly, and I mean this, I adamantly disagree with the NCAA allowing these rule changes to be made by people who are doing this to keep their brands relevant. The NCAA is not in the market of allowing everybody to get in there and shoot their shot. Now, to a lot of people, Notre Dame played a very weak schedule last season, but they beat an SEC team twice. Once in the reg, then again in the playoffs. Yeah, they lost to Northern Illinois, but after that, they were very, very dominant for the most part. But in the past, when they've played some of these schedules and these teams have gotten progressively worse, the point of what I'm saying is everybody's allowing this, and it's all to line their pockets. And I'm tired of the NCAA and the committee acting like they're MMA promoters and boxing promoters and whatever else, just trying to get the big money fight, instead of doing what is right and having the best teams in. As long as it is a voting system, big brand football will always supersede everything else. And that will make the game more unwatchable than anything else. Everybody wants to, these people, it's the transfer portal. Oh, it's the money in college football. No, it's not. No, it's not. You're saying it's the players that are ruining the game. It was never the players that were ruining the game. It was the decision makers who were ruining the game. And they still very much are. That's all I'm saying. All right, everybody. I am Drew Duncan. Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram is all at Drew Duncan Radio. I'm wherever you're listening to podcasts. Simply tell your device to play the Drew Duncan Sports Show. And, of course, you can find me on TikTok, YouTube, the RL Drew Duncan, the real Drew Duncan. Everybody stay safe, take care of yourselves, and have a wonderful rest of your night and or day.